breaking news. For the first time ever, a U.S. court has issued an order to disclose the personal information of X/Twitter leaker accounts in relations to Jujutsu Kaisen and Kimetsu no Yaiba. The Copyright Protection Association CODA is currently investigating leaks related to other anime series too. This could get bad. So, on the surface, this sounds like, okay, people breaking the law. Okay, their accounts got disclosed. That's one way to look at it on the surface. But then you think about it for a second and it's like, okay, well, these are anime studios and they're in Japan. Twitter, now called X, is run by Elon Musk in the United States. It's a United States-based company. So now we have Japan reaching out to the US to get leakers, or studios in Japan, I should say, reaching out to the US to get information, personal information from leakers on Twitter. And there's no promise that this will just stop in the US, and there's no promise that this could not be an abuse of power. So I'm going to kind of follow this thread on Twitter because this isn't on any of the major news sources that I use. I use the major anime trades. I don't know if I should say trades, but the really reliable, at least English websites. Like Anime News Network is probably the best and most reliable one. My Anime List, Anime Corner, Anime Trending, things like that. And very rarely do I actually cover something that's exclusively on social media sites, because usually this is just community-based stuff. But this could actually, I mean, it is community-based, but this could turn into something big. And so I didn't see this, and then I heard about it like right before I started filming this. And so this is a breaking story. Even though this happened yesterday, I hadn't heard about it until today. So this is all from Manga Magura RE. This is Manga and Anime News Twitter account. They're good. They're reliable if you want to follow them. More info regarding this. It seems to focus on 12 Twitter accounts that posted images and short clips of the anime Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer, as well as openings and endings before official release. The 12 accounts have been selected because they post particularly much of the content, some of them big accounts. And this is where we'll go back to Manga Magura over here in a second, but this is where we're going to spend a lot of this, and this is from Asaratha HS, where they post clips from this article and the subpoena. So first, we have this. Upon requesting access to the documents filed against the alleged anime leakers, here is what I could find. Toho and Aniplex, two extremely large Japanese anime production companies, have submitted an application to subpoena Twitter for information of accounts posting leaks. And then we have, obviously, the first paragraph of this where they say essentially what that just said. 12 accounts were listed and named, and the application for the subpoena names 3 ways that they were identified. Number 1, unauthorized and infringing posts of images and episodes prior to the release date. Number 2, intentionally incorrect information in the credits to catch leakers. So this means that the studios were sending out fake information regarding the staff that was working on the shows. So like in the credits of shows, you can be like, oh, well, this is the director, this is the animator, actors, all the credits. They intentionally have fake ones. So that way, if there's a leak that happens, they can see, okay, we gave this to this employee or this group of employees. And so now we know that the leakers are getting their information from them, and they can kind of narrow it down that way. And 3, watermarks that were baked into the episode to catch sources of leaks. So this is where unfinished episodes go out and the logo is just plastered on the episode because it's unfinished and it is not out for the public yet. And so to post that without them uploading it would be illegal and infringement, and it would be theft or piracy. The intent of the application is because Toho and Aniplex are foreign companies. They need to apply to actually file a subpoena against Twitter. Why are they subpoenaing Twitter? Because they want to take legal action and they want Twitter to give up the leakers' info. Screenshot of the subpoena. Without the leakers' information, they are unable to take civil action against the accounts in question. So these accounts are posting on Twitter, and because of how Twitter is now under Elon Musk, now there's a Twitter Blue thing where you can sign up and get paid for stuff. But to do that, you have to put much more personal information than you would just with a natural Twitter account. And even with just a regular Twitter account, you're still putting in a decent amount of personal information. You're still putting your email. You're still putting your phone number oftentimes. You're still putting in your full name, things like that. But with Twitter Blue, I've never done it, but from my understanding and what I've heard, apparently this is stuff where you can put in your address. Unless you have a VPN or something, Twitter already has your IP address. So this is like information. So they had to go to Twitter in order to, or they had to get to, not go through Twitter, but they had to take action against Twitter in order to get to the leakers because Twitter had the info. So here's a screenshot of the subpoena. Without the leakers' information, they are unable to take civil action against the accounts in question. From the 12 accounts, they're looking for all documents that show the name of the users, their emails, including emails for recovery purposes, so not just their main email, but their backup emails, their phone numbers, all payment methods registered, so all their cards, all their stuff, and all account access login info, whether that's their IP address, their access type, and more. All 12 accounts in question, all information was obtained via public access to court electronic records, or PACER. And then here's the accounts in questions. They don't have their usernames, they just simply have their @. So from what I know, these aren't necessarily the biggest leakers. I've never been one that's followed the leaks, so this has never been something that's majorly affected me. I usually just don't get leaks on my timeline. I usually see people talking about the leaks, but I don't see the leaks themselves, so I don't really know the major leakers personally. But from what I've heard, these are not them. Maybe like one or two, but most of these are lesser leakers who repost stuff from the main leakers. If you're wondering why certain accounts aren't on here, this is what I was just talking about, it's because this seems to be specifically targeting anime leaks, not manga, and legal proceedings move slowly. This has probably been in the works for a bit now. There was also a second subpoena filed on August 20th by Shogakukan. I don't have documents from this yet, so I don't know who they're trying to identify, but here's the docket. And I don't think we really need to go into that, but it's there. Also, a lot of people are pointing out that the accounts listed are not at all linked to the ongoing issue of leaks. This is probably true. They, however, still might have fallen for the 3 ways they catch leakers. Even if you aren't a leaker, you can still post the watermarked images. You can still get the wrong credits info. You can still post images of episodes prior to the release date, even if you're reposting it from a leaker, even if you're not the main leaker itself, even if you're just like, that's a cool screenshot from the latest episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. Boop-a-doop, posted on Twitter. Oh no, suddenly you're on the list. Well, not necessarily, but you're now open to doing that, or to that being done to you. Going back to Manga Magura, Aniplex and Toho are using watermarks and are purposefully using wrong credits to sniff out leaked material and the way they are distributed. From my understanding, this could explain why it appears that some accounts are on this list that did not leak material before release, but might have been used to leak material publicly afterwards in some other form, knowingly or unknowingly. In addition, it seems that there have also been other subpoena related to Detective Conan anime movies by Shogakukan, apparently. What this essentially means for many users on this platform, if you were taking image or video material from a leaker and repost it, it could lead to legal trouble for you, even if this material is posted after the official release. This means that if you have a screenshot of an anime prior to its release, that has the watermark on it, or you have credits from the episode that are fake, or you have the opening or ending that's clearly from before the show was publicly released, you can still get in trouble even though the show has now been publicly released. So, here's the problem with this. And I think in a vacuum, this sounds like a good idea. The problem is the way they're going about it. The problem is that this is the criteria for which that they are finding these leakers is not specific enough. What this worries me and other people in the community and other commentators who've talked about this is that this could lead to an abuse of power. This could lead to studios going after anybody as long as they meet these criteria. Even if they aren't the leaker, even if they aren't intentionally trying to do anything, even if the episode or the movie or whatever it is in question is already released to the public, you can still get, you can still have these studios try to take legal action against you. And we've seen it now. They're going against the U.S., or they're going through the U.S. court system to get information on Twitter, to get these individuals. They could feasibly, not unreasonably, probably likely in the future, go to people in other countries. And I think for most, if not all of us, when it's actually talking about the leakers themselves, the people who are breaking the law, we don't mind this. We don't mind this at all. Because I think I speak for a decent amount of anime community fans when I say that there have been too many people, or too many leaks, I should say, posted by people recently. And by recently, I mean like the past 3 years, where so much stuff comes out beforehand, like whether that's straight up video, whether that's pictures, whether that's plot details. There's just too much going on. And the same is true for manga, which this subpoena does not actually cover, as far as I'm aware. This only covers anime, but do not be surprised when we see manga in the future. Now, when I first saw this, I thought that this was going to be in regard to the major disastrous leak that we saw just a few weeks ago with Dan to Dan, with ReZero, with Ranma 1.5, with Terminator Zero. But it looks like this was probably going way before that. Sorry about my phone. This was probably, because of how long these court processes take, this is way before that. And I can only imagine that the studios, because the anime that leaked a few weeks ago, not all of them were Aniplex or Toho. There were other studios involved there too. And if that's the case, you best believe that those other studios, if this is successful, which it's seeming like it is, that other studios are going to get involved in this too. And then this could blow up to be an even bigger thing. We're just scared that this is going to turn into something that it shouldn't be, which is that regular people, innocent people who aren't trying to do anything, could get wrapped up into this, could get legal action taken against them, and could potentially, in like the worst case scenario, ruin their entire life. I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's like fear mongering. I think that that is a reasonable, feasible, and maybe even probable possibility for people. So, PSA to you guys, be very careful on what you post going forward. If you see a cool screenshot of an anime, you better make sure, 110% sure, that that is not anything that has leaked before the show actually came out. And even if the show has leaked out, if you're not sure if that's an official image, don't post it. If you have credits, if you're like, hey, this person's working on this show, and you don't know that for sure, if that has not been officially announced, be careful, because you could get in trouble for that, even if you post that after everything's released. Well, the crackdown continues in terms of anime piracy now. It's now officially over. It was already over, but now it's really over, because they're going after adult content. I don't know if I can say the word without this getting demonetized. But World's biggest free adult manga piracy site, sued by the U.S. company for copyright infringement. It's really over, bro. The world's biggest free mature manga site, considered by many to deal in pirated work, has been sued for copyright infringement by a U.S. distribution company, with the site worth a massive 7.9.4 million monthly visits. Via Torrent Freak, the adult manga website in hentai's... Oh, I said it, and I didn't even think about it. Anyways, legal troubles have worsened following a lawsuit for copyright infringement by PCR Distributing. PCR has been involved in the distribution of adult games since 1998. According to its recent filing, it owns, creates, acquires, translates, and distributes premium art and publications from Asia to the US market, and specializes in localizing and publishing Japanese visual novels and dating sim games for the English market. It previously filed for a subpoena to reveal the identities of those running that website, which the site disputes due to its belief that it acts as a mere conduit for potentially illegal content, rather than actively being engaged in storing illegal material. Given that there's a precedent for DMCA subpoenas being denied for this reason, it had effectively stalled PCR until August 30th, when the company sued. All right, so essentially they're not necessarily claiming that they are a full-on just like distributing illegal material, but rather they say they could be a conduit. I don't really know what the difference there would be, but I don't know. That's the way they're saying it. PCR filed a complaint by 4 charges: copyright infringement, vicarious copyright infringement, contributory copyright infringement, and inducement of copyright infringement. It now seeks a jury trial to bring H to justice, claiming that it cannot be considered a mere conduit since it doesn't allow users to submit content. If the PCR suit is successful, that website will be forced to pay compensation. Additionally, PCR demands that the site's domain hosting service, Cloudflare, turn over the site to them or for third parties such as Google and other search engines, ISPs, and all other services to block it in the US. This would mark a major blow to one of the world's biggest sites with 79.4 million monthly visits. Similar web adds that user access on average 41.62 pages on the site per visit. It's been around 11 minutes browsing. They had previously sought a private settlement with PCR, which was outright rejected. And then they keep going with the piracy thing. So it's over. It's Jover. Can we say that now? I mean, he's dropped out. But is the meme dead? I don't know. I'll keep saying it. It's Jover, bro. It's officially over. I mean, everybody was upset about the anime, just the piracy websites like Anywave and things like that. But now I'm seeing people on Twitter being like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" Anyway, I don't even know where to begin with this. This isn't really my field of expertise. I think Chibi did a video on this. I haven't watched it, but I'm sure he can cover that content more in depth than I can. This isn't really my thing. So interpret what I just said as you will. But I'm not super knowledgeable on this website or what they do. But I think this does show a precedent for future things. I know about Haname, H-Anime. I know about that. I don't know about this. So if something happens to that, I can comment on that. But anywho, Amoeba, one of the major streaming services in Japan, announced their most watched 2024 anime, at least so far, on its service. Just the top 5. And their top 5 were The Apothecary Diaries, Freeman Beyond Journey's End, Mashle Magic and Muscle Season 2, Delicious in Dungeon, and Classroom of the Elite Season 3, which isn't all that surprising. I mean, The Apothecary Diaries and Freeman were some of the, if not the most 2 talked about shows this year. I didn't realize that Mashle was that big in Japan. I think Mashle was like a decent sized hit at least over here in the Western anime community. But I don't think it was like that big. Delicious in Dungeon, same thing. I know that a lot of people have been talking about that, and I know a lot of people liked it, but I didn't realize that it was going to be that high up. And same thing with Classroom of the Elite, which is actually the least surprising one. Like whenever Classroom of the Elite or Slime show up on these things, I'm always like, yeah, that's usually what happens. Those shows have kind of, at least in my estimate, died in terms of their cultural significance as of late with these later seasons. They're just not holding on to the audience as much as they could. I think people are still watching them, but people just aren't talking about them as much, or people don't care. Whereas they're still really big in Japan. Yeah, I mean that's really it. I think it just kind of shows the. I know a lot of people say like, well, Japan's audience is different from the U.S. audience, and to an extent that's true. But I mean, you know, I think if I asked a lot of people like what their like top 5 favorite anime this year so far were, I think these two would be in most: Apothecary Diaries and Frieren. And then probably Delicious in Dungeon in there somewhere. I think at least 3 of these would be in most people's top 5, which shows that they have their finger on the pulse. One thing I'm a little surprised, well, I'm not surprised, but I think it's interesting, because I already knew it wasn't going to be on here just from stuff I've heard already from Japanese commentators, is that there isn't any Kaiju number 8, which was a pretty decent sized hit over here in the West. That was kind of like a when people thought that it was a slow year for anime, that was kind of a nice punch in the gut to awake them over here. But from what I know, Japanese people were not that into Kaiju number 8. That was kind of just like a MIDI thing that they just kind of ignored, which is interesting because so many people watch that. Like friends of mine who are very casual anime watchers who will watch like 1 or 2 shows a year watch that. And I think that would be the one thing that it's like, whoa. I wish that they released more so that way we could see what else was down there. But hey, I mean, I think it's interesting. We'll see how it looks towards the end of the year. We'll see if anything like ReZero or I'm blanking on what else is coming out this year. But if anything like that pops into the top 5 between now and the end of the year, but it will be interesting. Speaking of which, they mention here, back in September 2023 is when Frieren started. And it's almost been a year since, or it's been a year-ish since it started. And I think it's still on the top of my anime list, which real quick, we'll talk about this real quick. Yeah, I think Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood's lead is like officially broken because Frieren is not just ahead of it. It is largely ahead of it. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at the stats. Yeah. Wow. Almost 300,000 10 out of 10 votes. To be fair, I gave it one of those as well. It's interesting because Full Metal Alchemist has so many more members and so many more users. And I think the only thing it could be is that there were so many people who like kind of ganging up on Full Metal Alchemist and giving it ones over the years that they simply didn't have the fan base to push it up any higher. And there's only so much. And that as well as like, I think people were just like, yeah, Frieren's that good, so we're fine with it. But I mean, that is interesting. You know, Full Metal Alchemist was this thing that for years, you know, like since it ended essentially, like over a decade, it just like nothing could shake its grip. Like you would have something like you would have like a time where like, you know, Kaguya or Fruits Basket or Gintama or Bleach would surpass it briefly for a period, but then they would get beaten down by it. But that didn't really happen. When Frieren took over the number 1 spot, like what, 3 or 4 episodes in? Or no, I believe that premiered with 4 episodes, right? So that would be what, 6 or 7 episodes in? like it just hasn't let go. And it's held on to it for pretty darn close to a year now. And Frieren is the new top dog in anime. And the fact that it's like such a major leap, like everything else down here is like at number 14, everything drops below a 9. And then it goes 9, 9.01, 9.02, 02, 02, 03, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 09, 33. Like, what a jump. It's insane. But anyway, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, the top 5 anime of the year so far in Japan, at least according to their Abema streaming service, which is apparently called the Netflix of Japan. Uzumaki feels like it was announced like 8 years ago or something. But it's finally coming out this year. In like a few weeks, and they released a trailer for it. And this trailer is awesome. The animation's amazing, which we already knew. We got a sneak peek of it last year, I think. And they show it, and I'm sold. Like I don't really know what this is about. Like maybe like Satan or something, like possessing like this town. I don't really know. But I looked it up. So Uzumaki essentially means like a spiral or a whirlpool or something like that. And this show is like something's happening to this town or something. And there's something mystical about it, as the guy says there. And there is like some crazy body horror being seen here. Like this one is like the thumbnail, and this is the one that's been taking the most rounds, where it's like, that's disgusting. Oh my gosh. Oh, we saw this one already, where it's like, what is going on? Like, are people being possessed? Is like the town possessed and people are just getting caught in the curses? Like, it's just disgusting. It's so gross, and I'm so excited for it. One thing I can't tell about, though, is I can't tell if this is like 3D or if this is just the way it's animated. Like, is it the black and white? Like, is it just me, or does the animation, like, it's either like the crispiest animation I've ever seen, or it's 3D animation? Because it seems like when their like hands are rotating, it almost seems too perfect, where I'm like, that's just a 3D model rather than. But I don't know. This took forever to make, so there is a chance that that's just what it looks like. I'm excited to see it. It's going to be streaming on Max as well as Adult Swim, so I don't think it'll be on Crunchyroll at all. But man, I am so excited. I do not want to be let down. Like, this is one of those shows where, like, most anime I don't really follow super closely until it's like about to come out, where then I'm like, okay, what's this about? Am I going to watch it? This one, I don't even want to know. I'm already sold because it just seems like such a vibes anime. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like there. You know what I mean? I'm like, bro, I don't even know what this is about, but I'm here. Like, the body horror, the tone, the black and white, the music, the voice acting. I am so ready. And it comes out in like, 3 weeks or so? Man, I'm stoked for this. Attack on Titan teases new project for 15th anniversary on September 9th. It's already dead. They're milking it until it's dry. It's just a lifeless corpse, and they're still milking it. It's been dead. I feel like Attack on Titan's been dead for like 3 years. Like, the final season killed it because they just killed all anticipation with every long pause. Like, the fact that season took 3 or 4 years to finish. Like, it just, like, everybody just started laughing about it. Everybody found out what the manga ending was. They couldn't avoid the spoilers anymore because the manga ended like 2 years before the anime did. It was just the way they handled it. And now they're doing a compilation movie. So now they're doing Attack on Titan, the final season, the final chapters. What is it? The Last Attack or something? It's crazy. But anyway, they've announced this and people are talking about it. So Attack on Titan will mark its 15th anniversary on September 9th, and they are teasing a new project as part of the celebration. The day will mark exactly 15 years since the manga by Hajime Isayama first started on September 9th. The news was shared on the official X account for Attack on Titan, Fly art book with no details regarding the project. Their message reads, Attack on Titan will celebrate its 15th anniversary on September 9th. To commemorate the 15th anniversary, we are planning a project that all of our readers can enjoy together. So please look forward to it. We would be happy if you could follow this account and wait with the excitement. The first thing I thought of is like, oh, great, it's an exhibition. You know how they've been doing that lately? They're like, the major project that we'll announce in 3 days. And then it's like a 2-week exhibition open in Japan. And no one can go see it. Except for people who live there. Like, but they make such a big deal about it. And so that's what this feels like to me. But they also specify that all of our readers can enjoy together. So maybe it's a new book or something like that. Maybe it's a new chapter, like a bonus chapter of like, random stuff. I don't really know, but my main 2 guesses are an exhibition or a musical play. Wait, not necessarily a musical. Sorry, a stage play. Either that, one of the two. I don't know if Attack on Titan's already gotten a stage play. I don't know if this would be its second stage play or what. But those are my 2 guesses because that's usually what we see when we get these giant announcements. And I won't be surprised, but I guess today's the 7th, so I guess we'll find out in 2 days what this is going to be. But I'd actually, if they announce like a book thing, I'd appreciate that. If it's just an exhibition or a stage play, it's deader than dead. Like it's over. With all the major headlines of this past week out of the way, it's time to keep up with some of the more memorable moments from this past week. It's time for some keeping up with the anime community. Alrighty, a One Piece fan 6-month Lego build of Marineford battle goes viral after a new store sighting. And we're not going to read all this. Here it is. Wow. Look at that. How many pieces is this? Holy crap. 1 million Lego bricks. Weighs 2,000 kilograms. I don't know what that means. Speak English to me when you talk to me. Wow. Look at these boats. Holy cow. That is cool. Man, I hope they super glued that. Anyway, that's pretty cool. With that, it's time to take a look at the summer 2024 audience rankings as well as the Japanese anime ratings. So we'll start with anime trending as always. So number 1, we have Meikine, Too Many Losing Heroines, which has spent 3 weeks at number 1. Days with My Stepsister has spent 2 weeks at number 2. Oshinoko Season 2 has spent 3 weeks at number 3. Wisteria Wand and Sword went up 3 spots to number 4. Alia Sometimes Has Her Feelings in Russian goes down 1 spot to number 5. Pseudo Harem goes down 1 spot to number 6. 2.5 Dimensional Seduction goes down 1 spot to number 7. Nier Automata version 1.1a part 2 is a re-entry into the top 10 at number 8. Actually, My Dear Moments has spent 2 weeks at number 9. And My Dear Friend Nokotan is a re-entry into the top 10 at number 10. Going over to the Anime Corner rankings. At number 1, we have Alia Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Russian, going up 4 spots. Going down 1 spot is Days with My Stepsister to number 2. 2.5 Dimensional Seduction goes up 6 spots to number 3. Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest goes up 4 spots to number 4. No Longer Allowed in Another World goes up 1 spot to number 5. Too Many Losing Heroines goes down 3 spots to number 6. Wisteria Wand and Sword goes down 3 spots to number 7. The Elusive Samurai goes up 2 spots to number 8. The Cafe Terrace and Its Goddess Season 2 goes up 8 spots to number 9. And Mission Yozakura Family goes up 4 spots to number 10. Going over to the Japanese TV ratings. Remember, these are from the Kanto region, which has over 40 million people in it. And these ratings on Anime News Network are used to kind of gauge what most people in Japan are probably watching. And so at number 1 always is Sazai-san with a 6.3 rating, Detective Conan 5.1, Chibi Maruko-chan at 4.4, and that time I got Reincarnated as a Slime Season 3 at 4.4. Some other interesting things is My Hero Academia Season 7 was here at 2.8, and One Piece at 2.8, as well with the regulars here. This past week, we had Sazai-san at number 1, obviously, and My Hero Academia went up all the way to the 2nd spot with 5.1. And then Slime, 4.4. One Piece, 2.8, and Cells at Work hopped in here at 1.5 with other stuff that you'd be expected to see. Going over to some comments and questions from the last episode. You guys can just leave a comment or question on this episode and I'll respond to it in the next episode. But going down here, we have Unlucky Dark Zodiac, who says, personally, I think those companies shot both their feet off with the whole anti-piracy thing, and I feel like it'll backfire. Unless they come up with some plan to include every single anime with no skipped seasons or episodes in those sites that they want people to use, then I doubt this operation of theirs will last long as there's knowledge that there are hard to find / access anime out there. There were anime that I came across over the years that I've never heard of before without these sites. So I see this as a double-edged sword that they're falling onto themselves more than anyone else. Those who also they also claim that people have no excuse for using these sites when the answers and reasons are right there. I agree. Most people aren't like these like slimy little evil guys who were like trying to like avoid paying for stuff. I mean, some of them are. Most people just they have more access to stuff. They don't have the money to pay for an actual service. They don't want to deal with the ads. There's a lot of benefits that I think I agree with you that these legal streaming services need to account for these things in order to do it. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what a decent example would be, but it's like just making it illegal to, I don't know what an example would be. Like, you have to incentivize someone. You can't just make it bad to do something that someone's doing. You have to incentivize them to do something different, or else the behavior won't change. They'll just find a new way to do it. Original Darkwater says it's fine, and it's all fine and well to say that if companies made all anime available, everything would be fine. But the truth is, these companies need piracy and the threat of piracy to keep them honest. If that threat isn't there, they immediately start having all exclusives, forcing consumers to buy every damn streaming service out there, do regions locking, don't bother spending money on good search, recommendation, and UI. Piracy must exist, and these streaming companies have only their own greed to blame. To support the creators, I prefer to buy the Blu-rays, although again, companies are prone to all sorts of shenanigans, but at least I own the media. I understand what you're saying there. And the nature of these companies, I mean, they're companies, right? So their number one motive is profit. And so I agree with you in the sense that we need to keep them honest. And I can see what you mean by anime piracy sites are helping keep them honest, but anime piracy sites are also stealing a lot of what could be actual consumers. And so instead of just allowing the piracy sites to be there to keep themselves honest, I think that they should just have a way to, like, why can't we have a bundle deal? We're getting bundle deals in America with all these streaming services. Why can't, Crunchyroll's already merged with a bunch, but why can't they do a bundle deal with, some other studio or something like that? I agree that I'm not a huge fan of exclusive anime. I get it though. But I would love a High Dive Crunchyroll bundle deal, where like you can have anime on both. Because that's something that they do. That's the only reason they stay afloat. If everybody had if every service had every anime, everybody would have eventually subscribed to one service and every other service would die. You know what I mean? So there has to be some exclusivity there, but at the same time, you can't have so much exclusivity that people feel like they have to buy every single one to stay afloat. And then you pirate. So I think there's a little middle ground in there somewhere. Pantalemon2795 says, hey dude, I wanted to give you some constructive criticism. I really like your show format of having an anime news discussion show. It's actually an anime non-news show. I'd suggest getting a co-host. My main issue is you tend to monologue very slowly and get lost in in-depth explanations. Having a co-host to go back and forth with you I could have a snappier format. Also some graphics. I understand it's money, but it's even very basic portrayals might help wonders. Cheers and wonders. I have graphics. I have the intro. I have the keeping up with the anime community. I do images of all the stuff. I feel like you don't watch the show, but the co-host thing I've definitely wanted for a while. I want a co-host. The problem is, this isn't really a business. So I'm not really in the position to pay someone to do the show with me. So the person would have to want to do it for free, essentially, just out of the love of doing it. And they'd also would need to have good chemistry with me. And I understand wanting a co-host because I've wanted one for a while. I just don't know where I would get one, and I don't know who would want to do it. I feel like I don't monologue slowly. I feel like I monologue fast. And I know what you mean about me getting lost in in-depth explanations. I think what happens is I try to cover everything. Like, so I have ADHD, so there's 10 billion things going on that I could go down. And I tried to catch as many as possible in a discussion. And I definitely know what you mean by the fact that I just like get lost in in-depth explanations. But part of me is I'm just trying to fully explain all of the avenues that I'm thinking about with this story. I don't want to, say one thing just because it's short and snappy and move on, and then everybody be like, well, why didn't you mention this? And even though I was thinking it. So I just want to make sure I cover everything, but I know what you mean. I've tried to script out the show before, but it just took too long, and it just took away the fun part of the show. And I would love, what I would love? I would love to do the show live. I think doing the show live would be awesome because that would still give me something to bounce off of. I don't think it's necessarily a co-host rather than someone just to bounce off of. I think that's the thing. Someone to just keep the thoughts going rather than just me floating in my own brain. Steve Harrison 9901 says, we were pirates once and young. Money is a problem, of course. Some would say if you can't pay, you don't deserve to watch, which is cold but rational. Anything else is rationalization, right? Sure. But would we be here if not for these wild days of tape trading and fan subbing? Those 4th gen VHS tapes recorded at 6-hour speed were the drug of the day. You had to know someone to get your fix. There's one thing that an illegal site is good for. Those shows that not only aren't licensed in the US, they most likely will never get picked up. I've been shocked and happily surprised a few times. If you had told me 5 years ago Lasner was finally getting a release in the US, I would have told you to shut your lying mouth. So what do we do about piracy? Discourage it by lower prices of physical media and more access via free sites like Tubi. Never forget, Crunchyroll started as, if not a pirate site, surely a dubious one. That is true. And sounds like Crunchyroll, remember owned by Sony, is deluding themselves into thinking that India is the new China. Crunchyroll must need a new tax write-off. Well, I'll address the main part of that. Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know. I don't know how you would go about it, especially when you're running a business. Like you have to have some perks to get people to subscribe. But putting a paywall in front of your anime can make people not want to subscribe at all, and thus they go pirate. So I don't really know what the middle ground is. Once again, I'm not a business major. I don't do any of this. I'm just a guy who's like, hey, I see a problem here. I think we should address it. I have some ideas of how we can address it. Not good ideas, but I have ideas. And we can talk about that. But I'm not really one to kind of pick out what the case is, but I know what you mean. Everybody's pirated before. And piracy oftentimes can lead to a larger fandom of the thing, and can lead to super loyal customers. I don't know what they do, especially with where they are now. It feels like they would have to kind of backtrack and give up a bunch of money for a while in order to kind of start that process. And I don't know if they even want to do that, even if it would be the best thing in the long run. Ruckus Stone 6570. Over 29 anime sites. So if it's over 29, why not just say 30? Well, the thing is, they said in each article that I read, if you had watched the show, was there was 16 in one, there was 13 in another, and both said more. I believe both said that there were more than the ones that they listed. And one said 16, one said 13. I guess I could have said over 30, but one was 16, one was 13. That's 29, and both said that there were more than that, so it's over 29. I don't know what the problem is there. At SamTB43727 says, I used Annex a few times. Just sad to see him go. They were my backup. Especially with these ones that were used a whole lot. Like, I know Anywave in particular. I know people who use Anywave. it's gonna cause people who are that determined to pirate. But I don't know what their situations are. Some of them might be valid explanations. I don't know. It's going to cause them to go down like more unsafe sites, which I don't know what that, like it's once again those things where it's just these studios cracking down on piracy, which is a good thing. Piracy is bad. But they're not giving any incentives for people to do it a legal way. Farky50 says, great show with translations being viewed in now detail lately. Like in more detail lately? With translations being viewed in now, I assume you mean more detail lately. I watch dub usually, but I do watch sub often for live action movies and some anime. To people who watch both, is there a studio or anime that you feel is faithful or most similar to the original language? Ooh. A studio or an anime? I can't think of one off the top of my head. Most of them are generally like it's very few that you find are not super faithful, and most of those are like smaller things that are dealt with or mistakes. I can't think of any that are like explicitly like bad adaptations or translations. And I can't think of anything that would be like overtly like the best. Because even like the Monogatari, the Monogatari series, from what I know, in Japanese, the manga and the anime is like really cool because they do like wordplay in Japanese and they use language differently. And we can't capture that when we translate it into English or into another language. And so even though that might be a faithful translation, it might not be the best translation. So I don't really know. It's an interesting question. And Blue Sunrise 2323 says, anime is a lost leader that they make the money off the merch, not the shows themselves. Besides, there is no way to get access to a lot of shows wanna watch through sites like Crunchyroll, who bastardize IPs with their horrible localizations. I just want to watch all my favorite old classic 90s and 80s anime and OVAs and stuff that's not really on Netflix or Crunchyroll, etc. You're right. But to be fair, they are changing it. But for a while, and it still is, the profit on anime was made through the physical media and the merch. They're starting to see physical media sales decrease, which is causing anime not to be as profitable as it once was for the studios. And so they are starting to have to find different ways to go about it because everything is so digital now and that people aren't willing to buy as much physical media. And so they are finding different ways to go about that. And so I don't know how they're going to have to find different ways. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do personally. Once again, I'm not a business major. This isn't my field. I don't know what to do. But yeah. So any ideas, guys? I'll listen to them and talk about that. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Otaku Experience. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to listen to the show rather than watch, you can listen to the Otaku Experience podcast only on Spotify. And hey, if you want to keep with me outside of this show, you can subscribe to me on my main YouTube channel, King Tannic. You can follow me on Instagram at King Tannic, or you can follow me on Twitter at King Tannic Israel. And if you're new to the Burnett Network, consider sticking around. We have some great shows for you to watch every single day, most of which are hosted by the one, the only, Robert Meyer Burnett. And with all that being said, guys, I will see you all next time.